I'm going to take you through a few of the differences between the Insul Frog, the Unifrog, and the Electrofrog. Hey everyone, welcome back to another video at Hearns Hobbies. I'm Kieran, and today I'm really looking at some points actually. Just these Peco points over here, so let's fan these out nicely. And I'm going to take you through a few of the differences between the Insul Frog, the Unifrog, and the Electrofrog. So I've tried to choose a couple of points that are quite similar in size and shape, just to give you a proper idea of exactly the difference between the two, or three, how they differ between each other. You can see here from the top view, apart from the glare in the lights, which is absolutely amazing to view. So I have two right-hand curved points, and then just a regular kind of straight, medium radius right hand as well. So we'll take a closer look at it in a second, and I'll take them all out of the packet as well for you, just so that you can see them a bit better, rather than trying to get the light in there and get that full glare going. And there's one, there's your Insul Frog. Next you've got the Unifrog point. So some of you may already know the difference between these, but I do get quite a few questions about them every so often when people come in. And at least make this video, and then I can address some of the questions and potentially clear up any future inquiries. Of course, any questions after this, you're welcome to come and ask me as well. Like I said earlier, you've got your Insul Frog, Electrofrog, Electrofrog and Unifrog. We'll start off with the simplest one, or the one that most people will know about already, the Insul Frog. So this point here, apart from being a curved point and being different to the regular straight points a lot of people would be familiar with, has a little plastic frog in the middle down here. So the frog on the point is actually that little triangle there. I'll zoom in for you. Alright, so the frog on the point is that little triangle bit here. So it's a little bit hard to see on the Insul Frog because it's just black plastic and it kind of blends in with everything else surrounding it. But it's a little triangle shape, and it helps, well, it's what the wheels will sit on as they go over the point. So when you send a loco off into this direction, off to the right, it will run along this rail, float over the gap in the middle, and then kind of sit on this rail here and continue going for the rest of the way. So with your Insul Frog, you do end up insulating the two sides of the point depending on which way the point is facing. So at the moment the point is facing towards the left, and that means that the power is being transferred from this rail here. Presumably when you've hooked up your points, you have a source of power over here or somewhere in this direction behind the point, and the power will be transferred depending on which way the blade is facing. So as it stands, it's going to, this bit here is touching the, this blade is touching this rail here, and that will conduct the electricity up here, over here, and then up to here and onwards as well. But this rail here, because this blade is not actually touching this rail here, it is completely insulated, or partially insulated, because you do still have this rail here that is powered, I guess. But because there isn't anything to complete the circuit further on, or you can have a loco over here that would complete the circuit normally if it was powered, but without the power going down the other rail. So like if you didn't have it switched like this, then the point beyond here is completely isolated, and all locos and rolling stock that requires power beyond it will just be dead on the track. That's your thing with the Insul Frog points. A common problem that some people will find themselves with, especially if they get into like the larger radius points, so things like this and your other large radius, your number 6s, your number 8s, That's usually used in your Code 83s more than anything, but you end up with larger frogs the bigger the number. Your Code 100, your medium radius and your large radius. So you'll end up with a large distance between both this rail here and this rail here. And this can be a problem when it comes to running any kind of loco with a short wheelbase. So like your 040s, your some 060s as well. If they're particularly short, they can, if they get into a position where they've got one wheel on the edge here and it's just not quite touching that rail there, and one wheel here on this little bit of plastic here, it may look like it would make it over because you go, oh yeah, there's this piece of metal here. That metal's not conducting any power. Or if it is, it's not close enough to touch the wheels and get it across that line. And so you can often find that your locos will just stop dead on that point there. And then you have to give them a little push to get them going again. So once they are beyond that point, they are usually fine. There are a couple ways to rectify it with the loco. You can add stabilizers and capacitors and all that. But we'll talk about that another day and focus on the points for now. Like I said, that's something that people often find with the Insul Frog points. That's why they tend to go, especially if they try to get into DCC and stuff later, they'll try to get into your Electrofrog and potentially your Unifrog. So the Unifrog is a recent development, and I'll talk about it a bit more in a second. But I'll show you a bit of the underside of the Insul Frog too. So this kind of gives away exactly where the power is going and how it's sent there. So if I zoom in a little, so I've zoomed in on the back of the point just to give you an idea or show you the way the direction is, the electricity is directed. So with this rail here, this one goes off to the or left from this direction. It's the right when you turn it the other way up. You turn it off, it goes off to the left and across the frog on the other side. So if I put my finger here for a second, you can see, so the frog is directly underneath it. So the wire goes from this rail here up across and then connects right up to this rail here. And you can see that by looking at the underside. The power in this point is only sent that way when the blade of the point is touching the outside rail or one of the rails. So in this case, your power is being transferred from the end of the point up through here, up here, and then your loco will be able to keep going along there. And then when you want it to go the other way, there's this bit here that conducts the electricity from the other side of the rail all the way up here and then goes around the other bit and is soldered onto this rail here. So that gives you an idea of how things are wired up and how it all works. And it's just a basic kind of concept of electricity, more or less. There are little grooves and stuff in here that you can use to make it live if you wish, but as it comes, it's isolated from here to here and here to here. So if you wanted to make this a live point, you would do a similar thing to what has been done down here. Add a little bit of wire, solder it onto there, run it across and solder the next bit up to there. Same with further up. But yeah, that's what makes this an insulated point, or usually why people call it an Insul Frog, because it is actually isolated beyond this point, or insulated, depending on your terminology and what you want to, what kind of terminology you want to use. Yeah, that's just to give you a rough idea. So we'll bring in our Unifrog point. So this is just for a bit of side comparison. This is a new thing that Peco have started doing in the last few years. Initially you only had your Insul Frog and your Electro Frog, and so that one is over here. Just for a bit of side-by-side comparison, you get an idea of exactly the difference between the two frogs. They are slightly different shaped points, but the frogs are more or less the same, with maybe a little bit of difference in the size of them. Alright, so right here you see this is an Electro Frog point, and this is your Insul Frog point that I was talking about before. So your Electro Frog solves the problem of all your O4Os and your O6Os potentially cutting out on the point by making sure that this bit here is actually metal. So instead of having a long plastic bit or a big area where things are isolated and can potentially just get stuck, there's less of a chance of doing that. I'm not sure I'm aware of any small locos with a wheelbase shorter than that. I'm sure there's something out there, but again, deal with that another day. For the most part, this will serve every single purpose that you ever need, or it will serve most locos that you can possibly get. So you run along the, your loco runs along the track here, goes off here, and between here and here, sure, it's got one side loses power, but usually there's a wheel trailing behind or ahead of it that will carry it on, and then that will keep going. Get that Insul Frog out of here for now. So your Electro Frogs require a little bit more fiddling around with to install them in place properly, especially if you're going down the DCC route. And so that tends to be what turns a lot of people off, but it's not the scariest thing in the world to do. And it is possible to just kind of work with it and get it done. So if you know anything about how your electricity works, so with your model railways, you've got one rail is going to be positive, so say it's this one, and this rail is going to be negative, and then that will go up. So the wheels conduct the electricity, and there's usually some sort of way that they pick up the power, whether it be through the axles or through wiper pickups or some other method, and that goes up into the motor. There's in modern locos, there's often a circuit board as well in between, but in your older ones, it kind of went direct from power here, direct into motor, and then back down the other side, and that's how you complete the circuit. So if you have a loco going off to the right here, so say that's positive, this side is negative, you need this side to also be negative, this frog here to be negative to complete the circuit and keep the loco going along the rest of the way. Okay, so you got a positive here, a negative here, and a negative here. So any you want to isolate this point here, or this rail here, and this rail here with a insulating fish plate. This way you avoid any potential short circuits. You can get away with using your conductive rail joiners instead. It's more or less easier just to kind of deal with using an insulator there, and then you know that it's insulated, you know that that's not going to be a point of failure potentially in the future, or a point of a short circuit or anything like that. And then it's easier to work with, especially with your DCC and that. I'm sure any of you have set up layouts before or spoken to people who have set up layouts. You can talk to them all day about the issues that they found with points and trying to get them up and running to actually get their locos going. There's a million different things that can possibly go wrong, and you really want to try and minimize the risk of any of it. Similar to before, I'm going to flip it around and show you a little bit of the wiring and that underneath. So with your Electro Frog points, you do actually get these 2 points here. So this wire here is for the frog. So as the point comes out of the packet, it is ready to go just straight down onto the track or straight down onto the railway bed without too much worrying. But if you wanted to do things like your polarity switching, reversing loops and things later down the track, you might want to cut these and then later fill in that isolated part with a wire that is controlled by via the polarity of the point depending on which way the blade is facing. So this wire here is connected to these 2 rails, and it's both of those rails because the frog is actually going to be the same polarity no matter which way it's facing. So both of these rails are going to be both positive or both negative depending on which way the blade goes, and so that's why the wiring is a little bit different to what you see on the Insul Frog. And so an easy way to kind of wire it up is to grab this and then just hook a wire up to it. You can stretch this out and run it through the baseboard if you wish. Most people will kind of just like hook up an extra wire to it and run it through underneath. It's usually a green one, just for ease of knowing which wire is for what, and like all your color coding and that. And then either side is a red or a red and a black over here or over here. So this is your Electro Frog point. Next I'll go on to the Unifrog. So I'll do a bit of comparison of these side by side as well. So you can see the Unifrog point actually has a little gap between the frog and the rest of the point up here, whereas the Electrofrog is just a solid piece of metal, more or less, or two solid pieces of metal joined together. So out of the box, your Unifrog will act similar to your Insul Frog in the sense that this part between here and here is isolated. However, the rest of the point is actually alive. So when you have your power over here behind the point, not only is your power going directly up here and directly up here, but it's also going up here along this rail here and this rail here. And if I flip it over, you can see how and why. So your wire down here makes sure that there's continuous connection between your outside rail here and this rail here. And then further up along here, a wire here that connects to this outside rail, and this, I guess it becomes the inside rail on this side of the point. And you can see it's the same on the other side. So this outside rail is connected up to here, and then because the power is connected up to the end of the point here, it will become a live point. So your Insul Frog points don't come like that. They come with the option to add it, but as they stand with as the Unifrog points stand, they come with it already. You can change this. Just a little bit of wire cutter over here will prevent that from conducting the power between the two. And then you can have a different power source beyond it if you like. But you do also have this little bit here. So this is for the frog. So if I flip this around, you can see where my finger is. It's right on that frog there where that wire is. And so this is a bit of a mix between your Insul Frog and your Electro Frog, in the sense that it can act as either or. But it is actually isolated from there. So it is a live point as it comes, and that can be changed. But you get the wire on the back like you do with your Electrofrog, and you can hook that up to a polarity switch, which is usually like your PL13s that attach to the whatever point motor you happen to be using. I believe it's made to go onto, it's usually your PL13s, which are made to go onto your PL10s or 10Es. Just stick that on underneath it, and you got your red and black on one side and your green that hooks up to the other. And the green will go to the frog, and then your red and black is just your different sides of the rail. And so that will control the polarity of this frog, and it'll help give you more continuous running across the point. So all your little 040s or 060s that potentially might get stuck between that point and that point now only have this much space to potentially get stuck, and that's usually more than enough to make sure that they get across. So just for a bit of comparison between all three of them there, we have Insul Frog here, Unifrog here, and Electrofrog over here. The Peco are making more and more of these Unifrogs, or Unifrog points, in different shapes and sizes. I've seen a couple Ys come in, I've seen a couple others as well. But there is still the old-fashioned Insul Frog and Electrofrog to choose from for the time being. If you want something simple to use, a lot of people will go with your Insul Frog just to start off with, particularly as it's usually part of the set track. So you can see the set track comes with the fish plates there. Quite easy to just plug in and take out as you please. And then your Electrofrog, you can still plug it in and take it out as you please, but you just need to get some fish plates to go along with it as well. So that's about all I got planned for you today. Just a bit of an instructional video on the differences between them all and how they all work. I hope it was informative for you. If you have any questions or if I didn't answer anything properly, feel free to come in and ask or ring up the store, that's fine too. But yeah, hope you learnt something and hope to catch you in the store sometime.